Let's see. I don't think my mute is off.
Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
Are you there?
How are you? Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for your patience. Man alive. Yeah, I didn't have I thought I could use the same one as this morning, but it's a different.
Nope. And maybe I should have explained that too, Cliff. I apologize. Let's see. Cliff, we can't see you either, by the way.
Oh, just a minute. I wonder.
Maybe blocked.
It doesn't look like it. I wonder what's wrong. Just any idea about what I do?
In the bottom left-hand corner.
What's that?
Yes, I think. Yes.
Hello.
Okay, back again. All right.
Woohoo!
Thank you for your patience. Were you guys as frantic as me trying to figure out what was wrong?
Yes, probably so.
Yes.
Hey. All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Jessica Fox. I'm a program associate here with the College of Business Administration at Kansas State University. Thank you for being with us today. We are doing a professional education webinar with Mr. Cliff Sutton with the Self-Management Group. I work with Cliff quite frequently in the past couple of years to do different programs in our Kansas City area. So Cliff, I'll kind of let you introduce yourself. I kind of already introduced you a little bit, but if you would like to say anything else. And also in the room with me today is Susie Otten, and she is the director of our professional MBA program. So I'll kind of let you two say any words that you'd like, and then we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, thank you so much, Jess. And Daniel, welcome.
Yes, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
I want to encourage you to ask questions, jump in, pretend you're at that table you can see, and
Okay.
It's the life of this process. I think I actually have drawn a couple of pieces today from the conversation you and I had. So you may see some things that look familiar, but it's the questions and dialogue that get us thinking and make these things really valuable. We're going to talk a little bit about admission ticket and its use in other applications than as a self-discipline vehicle. Of course, it goes much deeper. And these are all based on the evaluations and our debriefs and mini coaching. So there's the subject areas are principally that one. Also, just hang on a sec. Also, I wanted to talk about time management versus effort management because it seems like one of the big challenges in sales is to how does one use time to a big advantage without getting overwhelmed and keep a life-work balance. It was really critical to participants both during the eval and after in the discussions we had. Finally, take a look at goal setting and tracking and see how we can get some of these habits of expertise that really help. Now, I'm getting long-winded here. Susie, I wanted to thank you so much. Susie Otten has joined us. She's participated in both morning and afternoon sessions on the 30th, and also is director of the online MBA program at Kansas State. Please, Susie, say a word.
Well, don't have much to add to that except I'm enjoying reinforcing the concepts that I learned on the 30th and hearing Cliff's examples of how to make them a habit, and hopefully we'll be able to get a little more insight. My goal is to increase enrollment in my online program, in K-State's online MBA program.
It's pretty much your running.
And so I'm finding these very useful, mostly for my self-management, but I learned so much, and I just want to learn more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. And we've been doing a bit of coaching. Also, I mentioned to you on this, Daniel, this will all be sent out, by the way, to all participants as well. But that we've got some folks who have signed up for some coaching because the whole concept around the coaching is it helps you with things you can't see. Some people call them blocks. I'm not sure what they are, but I know that a coach can help point them out for you and guide you on strategies so it can accelerate progress. And there's get in touch with me or with Jess right after, and we'll be sure and follow up as to what they're all about.
Sure.
So to get started, Jess, kick me off here, will you?
So let's start off with, the time management versus the effort management. Cliff, maybe you can kind of describe some different ways we can use both of those concepts. Give us some practical applications. So if you can maybe share a little bit about that.
Okay, now let's take a look at, and here I've got to do the share screen piece, which I'm getting better at.
You're gonna be a pro.
Yes, we're growing with our expertise. Put up the performance equation because I can't ever leave it out for some reason. So I always find a way of bringing it in. But the performance equation, when we talk about time management and effort management, is an interesting element because we look at the three aspects of performance: talent times habits times opportunity. And within that habits are both the effort management and time management. And one of the things that's really, really important is that when a salesperson in particular, you can have a list of things as long as you're armed to do. And this has been a theme in conversations following the program that, hey, I've got all this stuff that I'm supposed to do. How do I figure out what to do? So a good part of today will be around the whole concept of what is time management and what is effort management, and what kind of results do we get by looking at it a little differently. And one of the big questions is, where do I put my effort? And I think I could safely say several times one of the themes has been a salesperson has said, I'm pulled in so many directions and I'm supposed to make these calls, I'm supposed to follow up with these people. And you sort of take a step back and say, well, there's only so much time in the day. Which of the efforts that we're talking about is making a difference? Now, there are some within the job description that have to happen. So those get a priority. However, if you're driven by results, as we often are, the efforts that will bring the results become really, really important. Daniel, we talked a little about this, didn't we? Where do you focus your time and effort?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again?
Well, I know we talked a little bit about where you focus your time and effort. I realize you're principally incoming, right? The calls are called in to you?
Mostly it's email and some incoming calls, yes.
Okay. Well, do they determine your time allocation, or how do you determine where do you put time and effort into it?
Well, clearly I try to prioritize. So whenever I get a call, I always try to get those. And then the rest project things I have to do. So I try to prioritize that and divide my day to those. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And let's take it as a real example and say, suppose someone calls you, you have to determine how much research you're going to put into it. And the difference in time and effort can be substantial. Whether, in other words, assessing the right amount of time to spend with that client's material. Would that not be correct?
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Well, you cannot determine on how big the opportunity is. So it really depends on what kind of project we're doing with this customer. So if it's a big opportunity, then we make sure that we spend enough time with them. If it's a smaller customer, we try to send them we basically send them to one of our distributors
Okay. So
So that's
you've got parameters then, like the size of the opportunity. I would think also the urgency of it.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's something that needs to be done possible, and sometimes you have a few weeks to get it done. So
Well, what we're really talking about is sometimes you can get swamped, but it might be in situations where you could really put this one out a few days, correct? And then work on another one. I mean, there are decisions like how much research do you do,
yeah,
and how much is appropriate for this client,
yes, and
and
sometimes
how important. So one of the ways to look at managing effort and managing your time is what's the return on what I'm doing. There was a question about the value proposition, and this is really an example of it. That if you find yourself taking time at the beginning and deciding how far up on the list this particular project, this particular analysis is, it can help you. It can help you tremendously when it comes to actually applying the day, working with your day.
yes,
Okay, well, I mean, it sounds like you've got a good handle on that, and it's certainly really helpful. What we find with a lot of salespeople is they will set up a number, and this is the kind of thing anybody can do. They'll set up some parameters to decide how important is this particular situation, and how much effort should I or will I put into it, what's the right amount, and the timing for it. And then each day you find yourself with perhaps 4, 3, depends on the type of work you do, or 8. It's a number of priorities that are, I must do these before the end of this day. But it means that once those are done, you can reinforce that you've done what you committed to do. And it takes a lot of the scramble and pressure off, especially if you start saying, hey, I can't add that one on today very easily. I got to find out if it's really important. So time management takes on a little bit of a different hue.
yeah,
Does that sound right?
yes, yes.
There's another piece to this too, and that's how much I switched over to managing controllables here with the managed by effort concept, where, as you recall from the session, everybody, we looked at managed by objectives because we have to have somewhere that we're going, and ultimately we get to a result at the other end. However, the effort in between is so important. And we were talking about, actually this week with one of my clients, I was talking about the amount of research she was putting in before she was calling possible contacts. And it was taking her a week to do about 30 in research. And then when she made the calls, she found out that about 2 or 3 were actually possibly viable. And in some cases, she was simply leaving a message. So this required a whole reanalysis. What am I doing here? Is this the way I want to spend my time? And the reason being that at that quantity of effort here on the left was large, yet it didn't require quality. So what she's redoing now is rethinking who she spends her time calling, because it was taking most of her flex time researching and calling people. Only very few were actually responding or had potential.
Yeah, that makes sense.
See how you can adjust it and constantly make it a living thing.
Hey,
Yeah,
Cliff.
sometimes you want to be too prepared, and you don't really need to be as prepared, because then sometimes that investment doesn't pay off.
Just speak a little louder, Daniel. I'm having a little trouble hearing. It's okay.
I was saying that sometimes you invest too much time because you want to be prepared for those calls just in case they happen, but sometimes that investment doesn't happen. as big of a return. So sometimes you have to call without having all the information, and if you need to find out more information after the call, you can always do a second follow-up call, and maybe that's a better use of your time.
So how many times when you do that in-depth research, how many times, or let's look at it both ways. One way is when you've done maximum research. Another way is when you've done a brief research until you get some more detail. How often do you find yourself getting in a jam because you didn't do enough research?
Usually it's because I do too much, and it sometimes doesn't pay off.
Okay.
So that's usually what the issues with me. So I don't know about everybody else. So
can you remember the last time that it was a problem, like you wished you'd done a lot more research?
think
Sort of answers the question, right?
yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
If you have to think too hard about it, it's not happening very often, Daniel.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah.
imagine how much it would free up your day.
Yeah.
If you did what you considered your baseline research, and maybe you even quantify for a call from let's say a call back to a customer inquiry, I do these 2 or 3 simple things, then I call. And that way you can start to get a feel, right?
Yes. Yes.
And when you quantify it, it's going to save you tons of time because you'll research what you need to research.
Exactly.
That sounds really good. By the way, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
That's really an important point.
Hey, Cliff, not to interrupt very quickly, but we have had another caller join us.
Who's joined us?
May I ask who's calling in on the line? It says there's...
Somebody's there.
I don't know, maybe not, but there's another screen popped up, so maybe no one's there.
Well, welcome, mystery caller. Thanks for joining.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to make sure we were doing the proper introductions there.
Okay.
Are we moving on, or are we still on? Okay. Now moving on to admission ticket. In our session that we held on October 30th, the idea of the admission ticket and that concept was fairly new to many participants, and is presented mostly for use to keep yourself on track. People asked how to use the admission ticket with clients and possibly some examples of how they could do that.
Great question. And actually, Susie, this was one of yours too, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, and it's a way of thinking, and you know, we kind of touched on it there in the part that in Daniel's conversation. For example, if what is my admission ticket for myself being ready to talk with a client? Daniel's probably adjusting his now, so that you've got parameters that say this will do the job, it will be time efficient and effective for everybody, so this is the amount I'm going to prepare. That's my admission ticket. It can really make a big difference as well if you start applying the concept to, for example, you have several clients you're going to call, and if we look at the ones who did not return calls, yet you thought they would be interested, then in those cases, their admission ticket might be calling back. And I'll give you an example in marketing. You send out 200 emails to people who have opted in to learn more about the program or that sort of thing. And you know, for the most part, if you got 15 to 30 back, or a maximum 40 out of 200, that would be pretty good. And those people have, in a way, fit that admission ticket criteria because they've said, I'm holding up my hand, I would like to learn more. So in that case, you might continue providing information to the rest of the group, but you might personally connect with those 40. Does that fit as a good example?
Yes, so in that example, the admission ticket would be replying to the original email.
So,
That's
just
right.
one, Daniel, I missed it.
So in that example that you just gave, the admission ticket would be to reply to the original email.
Yes.
Okay.
And you could then take it further and make personal contact, and maybe a third of the people would actually have a conversation with you and express a specific need.
So your point is you shouldn't be spending time in certain areas or with certain clients or possible clients if they don't meet that admission ticket.
Well, you just don't know is the problem. So what you're really saying is I'll make a concerted effort to connect with the people who have responded.
Uh-huh.
So you're using it as a sorting mechanism, really.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
And another example is, I don't know if you've ever had someone talking, a customer you're interacting with, and they say to you, please send me some more information on that.
Yes.
Okay? Well, the challenge becomes, are they saying send me more information because they want more information or because they want to get off the phone?
Huh.
And one way to answer that question is to ask them to share some specifics with you. And yeah, well, when they're willing to go into detail a little bit and really show you what they're thinking, or at least take the time to have a short conversation with you, then you can use that as an admission ticket. It also really helps you send the right information in the right amount. But in practice, you're involving them in the process. And a lot of the work we do, a lot of the reason the motivation is so strong is because of the concept of getting involved. So the more they're involved, the more they've paid for their ticket, if you like.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. That makes sense. That idea was not fully clear, but now it is. Okay,
well, because it tends to come across as a sort of a pure sorting or a hardline qualifier. But it's much more than that. It's a measure of involvement, of engagement, if you like. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a much bigger thing. So I like to get, but you have to get the idea across first. And that's why it tends to come up is if I set a goal, make that an admission ticket to follow up with these 5 people every day, then I have something quantifiable I can measure. The next step is to take it to the quality level. You could call that phase 2 and phase 3, and how do I use it now to motivate? How do I develop that whole concept? Okay?
Yeah.
Should we take the next one, Jess?
Moving on, yes, sir.
Is that good enough? Is that cover it, Susie?
I think so.
I know it was a point for you, but was there something even, I don't want to jump too fast, was there something really specific you wanted to?
No, I think that marketing example you gave, I modified it for myself and my notes a little bit in terms of I invite alumni to these information sessions in different cities where I'm going. And I liked the concept of each RSVP being a hand held up with more information. I can establish that personal relationship either by phone or meeting just one-on-one with them if they don't come to my general information meeting, and involving them and telling me what else they need to know before they enroll in my program or even consider enrolling in the program.
Well, I think you make a great point, and let me take a step further in effect. It's almost like keeping your eye on the ball. It's funny how we can get 40 people that we meant to get back to, and actually not get back to one of the 5 who really had shown a lot of interest, and not actually take our time to say, well, I've got to get my attitude pumped up. I have to get ready. I'm going to be talking to these 5 people, and this philosophy, this shift in attitude says, yeah, I'll get to those 40, but I tell you one thing that's going to happen for sure and really soon is I'm getting to these 5. Because very often we get caught up in what we're supposed to do, which is the 40. And do we bring our best game to the 5? And do we give them the time due because they've earned it? There's a high probability and they've invested their time and effort. That's kind of a quick summary of the logic here. Because sometimes we leave on the table good stuff. Well, we're in the midst of trying to do something that we're doing to comply with a number. That makes sense.
That does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great point. Thank you, Susie, and thank you, Daniel, for jumping in on those.
Okay, next question.
Sure, let's do it.
All right. So in our previous sessions that we held in October, we had a lot of goal setting questions through both evaluations and profile debriefs. So Cliff, what could you add based on the new information you've received from these evaluations and debriefs?
Well, go ahead.
No, but yeah, just based on goal setting. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me pull up I had a specific slide I wanted to refer to for that, and I think this is it. This was something called, wait till I make sure this is live. Hang on. Did that slide come on?
Not seeing it yet.
Okay, just a sec. I got to go back here. Hang on. Where did I lose my little camera? Oh, I'm on it, aren't I?
We see you, yep.
Oh, can you see it?
We can see you.
Oh, you can see me, but you can't see. I've lost the little camera. Where the heck did it go?
Your screen.
Yeah, well, just a minute. I'll close some things and see if I can get it to come back. Okay, now we're on the screen. Share.
Uh-huh.
Well, let's see what happens. Nope, that's not working. Okay. Darn it, I lost the camera on the bottom of my screen. This just is not my day.
Try right-clicking.
I'm going to close this one. And hopefully. No, I've lost the camera connection somehow. Just a minute, maybe if I do this. Stop video, Jessica. Go back to, okay, got you back. I'll share screen. And here we go.
Everything's working.
Okay, we got self-assessment mode. We talk about goal setting, and I'm using this as a placeholder really, but the point of it is whatever you put in that bubble is an area you're looking at, such as, in this case, it's developing a strength in a given area. Like maybe it's a skill like listening. You might put in that big central bubble and then look at strengths you have and growth opportunities. Well, what we use this model for, and this is in the workbook as well, this model is used to isolate a number of strengths and then to pick one that you want to work on. Now you can do the same thing with goal setting and say, right at the beginning, what is my goal? And pick something that you want to achieve. Maybe it's around sales. It could be around advancement in your career. And then you look at the strength side of it, things that really apply to it. So you can do that to develop develop that specific goal. Now, when it comes to the goal setting itself, we had an action planner, which basically takes the questions that we had used for the it's used for coaching, these particular questions, but they're also used for goal setting. And your manager would normally coach you this same way. Is this looking familiar?
It is.
Okay. Well, when you're putting an action plan together, you pick an area that you want to set a goal in. First the area, then how would I like to, or what would I like to accomplish? That becomes the goal. Now, when you use this process, and you can use it on anything, I can't think of an exception so far, we haven't run into one. You take yourself through these questions. What happens is when you say, how do I feel about, give us a goal, Jess or Susie or Daniel. What would be a goal you might be interested in? Anybody jump in.
I don't know, is outreach too broad? Client out, is that too broad?
What was it?
Client outreach.
So what does client outreach mean?
Contacts with potential clients, or it's all about increasing your client base.
So what might your goal be?
The goal is increase
outreach.
Well, do you want to coach through it right now? Okay. Well, you're asking yourself these questions now, right? So it's client outreach, reaching more clients. What would you like to accomplish?
Well, maybe that's too broad. I need more effective outreach. I think
That might narrow it
we're
down.
contacting a lot of alumni, but not getting much response to those invitations.
So your goal is more effective outreach.
That makes it narrow. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, now see what's happening already? You're starting to refine it, which is pretty cool. What would you like to accomplish with this more effective client outreach?
An increase in positive responses to attend events.
Okay, positive responses. So an increase at the end of the day to event participation by whom?
By the Alumni Association.
Okay. Okay, that's your goal. That's what you'd like to accomplish. And now when you come to the what do I need to do part, that's your mystery, right?
That is my mystery.
What are you going to do about it? Like when you look at how can you assess that? Can you look at what you've done in the past?
Yes.
Can you get access to all kinds of data on everything that's been done?
Now I know how many invitations go out, but I don't get access to the list. Does that make sense?
Yes, but what I'm looking for is there are invitations, but there are other methods. For example, can you poll your current and past students?
Yes.
And find out how they heard about or found out about the programs in the first place?
Oh, I could. Yeah.
Okay. Well, see, this is the thought process we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Where you start to say, how many ways can I look at, in this case, where they've come from in the past, initiatives we made, and how well they worked. Okay.
Okay.
What other sources might be people who were business students, who were actually students in a business program at your school or maybe at other schools who happen to live in this area? But the beauty of this is they don't even need to live in this area.
Correct. Yeah.
Can you get lists, for example, of business school grads from across the country?
Lists of K-State grads? Yes, I can.
Well, you may be able to get a lot more than that. You may be able to get grads from other universities that are, let's say, similar to K-State.
And I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that might be how do we find out how to do it?
Receive but probably their alumni association, or
If they would share.
if they would share. Sometimes
It's
schools aren't,
proprietary.
aren't too keen on sharing that information, but that's a good thought.
Well, the whole concept here is some work, some don't.
Well, exactly, true.
Is to start looking into every aspect that you can. And that's going to answer the question, what do I need to do? And from that, you determine, what will I do?
Correct.
Okay? Now that's where you, as they say in sales, that's the close.
Right.
That's where you make the commitment, right?
Correct.
So we look at this as a living example. You got a good start on something that's real, right?
I'm going to go start this afternoon.
See, look.
Okay. You've got what help will I need?
I love
So
it.
now you're looking at Jess sitting there. She's going to help you, I can tell.
We're chatting about it. I like it.
No,
It's
I'm
great.
making the list of people I kind of know who I need to contact in order to get access to that data you were talking about. But I think it's going to be me.
And that's one route. As you think about this, and now that what's happened is I can even hear you starting to get kind of excited about it, Susan.
Yes.
Well, when that happens, a whole bunch of other things happen. A lot of enthusiasm comes out of that. And your attitude is contagious when you're like that. When you talk to people, they're more inclined to bring you things, give you and share information. And that's what this process is designed to do, to bring out that internal motivation. Okay?
Great.
You're observing, Daniel. What do you think of that process? How's it feel? Daniel, did I lose you?
No, sorry, Cliff. What was your question again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Did you hear the interaction there with Susie?
I'm sorry, I had somebody
I
for 2
sorry,
seconds.
Well, it'll be in the replay. Don't worry. It was just going through this process and really getting involved with it is critical. If you just ask the questions, well, not much would happen, would it? But when you start saying, this is important to me, and in this case, Susie was looking for more information on how to more effectively reach out to new potential students for the online program.
Yes,
And,
I was listening there.
well, the fact is, you cared about it. And therefore, once we started exploring it, you were able to dig deeper. Would you agree, Susie?
I agree, totally.
Okay? And it's just like when athletes visualize themselves in completing, whether it's a high jump or playing tennis, and they visualize themselves interacting, they're immersing themselves in it. This process does the same thing. So as you're looking to, as we talked very specifically here about, it was about goal setting and tracking. It makes such a difference if you use this self-coaching model to work with that goal setting so that the goals really mean something to you. A goal someone else gives you, like hit $60,000 this month in sales or something like that. You know it's important, but does that have any life to you, really? Like other than being something you were told to do, does it really get you going? It typically doesn't inspire that much. So this type of approach, and you'll notice that everything coordinates here, that you can use this simple self-coaching method for yourself and for others, and I encourage you to actually use it. Get involved with it. Make it work for you. Use it with your friends if you wish, if they're asking how to figure something out. Can you see how that could be valuable practice?
Mm-hmm.
And family.
Mm-hmm.
Surprising how many times in my family we use a simple sequence like this to sort something out, and it goes much better.
That's
So very versatile tool, and it actually, at the end of it, you have a plan of action, okay, that you can revisit.
It helps to have someone to bounce it off of. So either not necessarily a coach, but maybe a peer who understands your work. It doesn't have to be your supervisor or your boss.
Just someone to talk it out with.
And that would create synergy if you're on a sales team, that it just kind of spreads throughout your team and everybody gets more successful.
You're making a great point. Going back to our very beginning when we talked a little about the performance equation, one of our pharma managers carried the performance equation in a binder with him all the time, along with his questions. But he would do meetings with his group, and they would analyze situationally. Let's say they were given a new target for a particular product. He would get his whole team to analyze it together. And they would strategize as to the activities using this type of approach. So you can see how they brought the two together. They gave themselves the talent, habits, and opportunity as a background or a core, and then picked the area they wanted to work on specifically. And after they assessed it, they then set their goals and their plan of action. So they use the brain trust. I love your idea of a brain trust, Susie. Getting a group of people, or one person or more if you can, that all start to say, well, we could do this or we could do that. And it expands things so fast compared to sitting there thinking, what can I do here?
Very true. That's great.
So thank you very much for that. And back to you, Jess.
Okay. So I think we're kind of at the point now to talk about future programs, or was there any other topic you wanted to cover, Cliff?
Or do you want to talk about futures a little bit? Okay.
Do you want me to read them off what they were, and then we can kind of go from there, or?
Let's do that, and then we'll ask for some feedback from the group.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we did in our previous morning session, Cliff and I kind of at each program that we hold take evaluations of the attendees that are there. So these are just a few of the suggestions that those attendees wish to see at future programs. Goal planning and tracking, sales process / time management and preparation, self-motivated in sales, life balance, growing as a leader, overcoming objections, and understanding value propositions. So hopefully those might be of interest of some of you, and hopefully maybe we can also collect other feedback of other interests that there might be.
Well, that's fantastic. And we touched on, I wanted to touch on some of these during the session today. And I mean, even things like the last one mentioned, understanding value propositions. When you start to decide, how do I assess value and how much time do I put into one thing or another, that comes back to that time management piece we did at the very beginning. And things like the series of questions will really help you to bring about the motivation that you need. You really need it. You have to be doing something that inspires you versus something you're doing because you feel that you must do it, or worse still, you should do it. So what we're looking for too is feedback from you as to the types of programs to do next year. And any one of these topics we can take a deep dive into, or maybe feature 2 or 3. And really, one of the great parts of doing the debriefings and the mini coaching after has been just like today. You start to get talking about real situations, and it's amazing how often, at least I find almost every time in these general discussions, when I'm talking about something someone else needs help with or is looking to find a solution to, it helps me with my own solutions. I usually find something that sort of cross-pollinates. Researchers say it's really powerful. Talking with a researcher in Alabama who was working with, he's in genetics and also working on diabetes, and got involved in a discussion section with physics researchers from Louisiana, and he figured out something that made a difference to his research in diabetes. So you just can't tell where the idea is going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to thank you so much for participating, and Daniel, thank you for jumping in and also bringing a real piece to the table as something you're working on, and Susie as well. That's fantastic. We're doing, as I mentioned, some coaching with different participants, and I'm also setting up a program that's starting about the end of the first week of December, which is bi-weekly, called Mobile New Managers 10-4, and it allows you to do this online with 2 live sessions a month, and plus email and quick Q&A sections in it. So that may be of interest to you. Do let us know, and we'll also send out some more info on it. And Jess, these are going out as MP3s or MP4s, right?
Sure, correct. So we will get these sent out to participants and to anyone else that may couldn't have joined us today. But thank you everybody for being here, and absolutely keep an eye out for future programs that Cliff and I will be planning for 2015. So Daniel, as Cliff said, thank you for being here with us today, and we appreciate your input. And if there's no other questions or comments, I think that kind of wraps it up for this webinar then.
I got one more,
Yes.
and that's Jessica. The evaluation said you did a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you very much, just as today.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I look forward to
support with K-State. It's really, really helped a lot.
well,
So
this
thank you.
is a great relationship, to say the least. So,
Thank you.
well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Take care.
Most, Daniel.